Picture this: a man standing under a star-filled sky, his life comfortable, his future secure, when suddenly God speaks, calling him to leave everything behind for a destination he doesn't even know. That man was Abraham, and his story is one of the most remarkable in the Bible, a tale of faith, sacrifice, and a God who guides us through the unknown. Abraham's journey wasn't just about a physical move. It was about trusting God's voice in the face of uncertainty, fear, and impossible odds. If you've ever faced a leap of faith, a new beginning, a tough choice, or a dream that seems out of reach, this story is for you. Let's dive into the life of Abraham and discover how his faith in God's guidance can inspire us to step boldly into our own unknown. Our story begins in the bustling city of Ur, a place of wealth and idol worship, where Abraham, then called Abram, lived with his wife Sarai and their extended family. Life was good, predictable, rooted in the familiar. But one day God's voice broke through. "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." Genesis 12:1. No map, no details, just a promise. "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you." At 75 years old, Abraham could have laughed it off or clung to comfort. Instead, he packed up his household, took Sarai and his nephew Lot, and set out for a land called Canaan, guided only by God's word. The journey wasn't easy. Canaan was a foreign place, filled with strangers and challenges. Famine soon struck, forcing Abraham to seek food in Egypt. There, fearing for his life, he faltered, asking Sarai to pose as his sister to avoid Pharaoh's wrath. It was a moment of weakness, a crack in his faith, but God protected them, sending plagues on Pharaoh's house and guiding them safely back to Canaan. Abraham learned a lesson. God's guidance doesn't falter, even when our faith does. Back in Canaan, God renewed his promise, showing Abraham the land his descendants would inherit. But there was a problem. Abraham and Sarai were childless, and Sarai was well past childbearing age. Years passed and doubt crept in. In a moment of impatience, they took matters into their own hands. Sarai gave her servant Hagar to Abraham, and Hagar bore a son, Ishmael. But this wasn't God's plan. God reaffirmed his promise, declaring that Sarai herself would bear a son, Isaac, through whom his covenant would continue. To seal this, God changed their names, Abram to Abraham, father of many nations, and Sarai to Sarah, princess. At 99, Abraham laughed at the idea of a child, yet he trusted God's word, circumcising his household as a sign of the covenant. When Sarah was 90 and Abraham 100, the impossible happened. Isaac was born, a living testament to God's faithfulness. Laughter filled their tent, but so did tension. Ishmael's presence caused strife, and God guided Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael away, promising to care for them. Abraham obeyed, trusting God's guidance even when it broke his heart. But the greatest test was yet to come. Years later, God spoke words that must have shattered Abraham's soul. "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering." Genesis 22:2. Imagine the anguish, the questions racing through Abraham's mind. Isaac was the child of promise, the key to God's covenant. Why would God ask this? Yet Abraham didn't argue or run. Early the next morning, he set out with Isaac, his faith wrestling with pain. On Mount Moriah, Abraham built an altar, bound Isaac, and raised his knife. At that moment, God's voice rang out, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld your son, your only son." A ram appeared, caught in a thicket, and Abraham sacrificed it instead, naming the place "the Lord will provide." God reaffirmed his promise through Isaac Abraham's descendants would be as numerous as the stars. Abraham's story doesn't end with triumph on Moriah. He faced more trials: Sarah's death, finding a wife for Isaac, navigating conflicts in Canaan. Yet through it all, he clung to God's guidance. Hebrews 11:8 tells us, "By faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going." His faith wasn't perfect. It wobbled, it stumbled, but it grew step by step as he trusted the God who called him. What does Abraham's faith mean for us? Life is full of moments when God calls us into the unknown: a new job, a move, a relationship, or even letting go of something we love. Like Abraham, we might doubt, falter, or try to take control. But his story shows us that God's guidance is trustworthy, even when the path is unclear. When we step out in faith, God provides, maybe not the way we expect, but always the way we need. Abraham's willingness to sacrifice Isaac mirrors God's ultimate provision: Jesus, the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. Here's my challenge to you. This week, listen for God's call in your life. Is there a step of faith He's asking you to take? Maybe it's forgiving someone, pursuing a dream, or trusting Him with a fear. Write down one thing you're afraid to let go of and pray, "Lord, guide me like you guided Abraham." Take one small step. Read Genesis 12. Pray for clarity or share your journey with a friend. Your faith, like Abraham's, can grow into a legacy that blesses others. Let's close with a promise from Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. That's what Abraham did, and it's what we can do. God's guidance is sure, His promises are true, and His love never fails. Step out, trust Him, and let His light lead you forward.